Okay, continuing with my web graphics. Again, we just got done making the background that kind of tiles down the page there. And it's quite easy to make those, like you just saw there. The next one I'm going to make will be just the standard old style of making kind of a graphic and having it repeat on the page. In this case, in Photoshop, I have a photo of a garbage can here. That I took in Europe a long time ago. That's why it's all pixelated. So what I want to do is take an image out of this photograph and use that as a background for a web page. Now, whenever you're making graphics for backgrounds, usually you want them to be very subtle so that they don't take precedence over the content that you're trying to display on the screen. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this image that you see right here, and I'm going to chop out the symbol that you see here using the selection tool. I'm going to use the elliptical marquee tool here, and you just drew a circle, and I've already selected it already. So I guess I can do it again if you want. I'm going to draw a circle. I use the Alt key to have it grow from the middle out. Oops. It's making me start drawing first. It's still not working. Here we go. Let me undo that. Okay, so again, I'm using the elliptical marquee. I'm going to put my cursor in the middle of this. I'm going to hold down the Alt key. I'm going to start growing until it's around my shape here, and then I can adjust it a little bit so that it's my entire shape. So after I draw a selection around there, I'm going to copy by hitting Control C to copy. Then I'm going to say File New inside of Photoshop, File New, and I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to hit Control V to paste. So you see I have my graphic all by itself. By using one of the selection tools, I can take an area out of a photo, and if you copy and then say File New, it's going to keep the same dimensions that you copied. So that's why it's about the same size of the shape that I did. And then of course this is kind of, it would be very distracting to use this as a background because it's very contrasty. To adjust the contrast in a layers window, I'm just going to turn the opacity down. All I did is put my cursor over the word opacity and drag to the right. It'll turn it down. I'm going to do it kind of subtle, maybe only have like 20% so that you can barely see it in the background, but it might be somewhat okay of a website. It's more important that you understand the concepts and not necessarily the best design right now. In this case, I'm going to go under File, Save for Web and Device again, just like I did when I made the other graphic. Inside there, again, I can test to see which one will be smaller. The GIF would be 7.55 kilobytes, and if I save the JPEG, it'll be only 2.04 kilobytes. So the JPEG is a lot smaller than the GIF in this case, so I'm going to go with the JPEG. So in this case, I'm going to hit Save, and then let's call it, I'm just going to say graphic back, and then I'm going to hit Save. Then I'm going to switch back over to Dreamweaver to program this. You can see the one way I was doing it. I'm just going to start with a new file in Dreamweaver. Again, I'm just going to use the new blank HTML document, HTML, the old standard XHTML, not HTML5 at this point. And then, again, I'm going to save it. First thing I'm going to do is save it so it knows how to the path and where the path is to the graphic. And we'll talk about that in a moment. Okay, I'm just going to give it a name and hit Save. Again, just like I did before, if I looked at the code, you'll notice there's the body tag right now. I want to redefine the body tag to have that background that we were going to do. So we're going to do it as an internal CSS file. To do that, I'm going to go underneath the CSS styles window, and I'm going to hit the new button, which is a plus right there in the CSS styles window. And I'm going to use a tag, and that tag then is redefining the body tag. Once I use the tag and redefine the body tag, I can hit OK. In the CSS definitions window here, I can go to where it says background. In the background, I'm going to go under where it says image, background image. I'm going to hit Browse, and I'm going to choose my graphic background. And then again, you have your repeat options. If you say, if you leave it blank and hit OK, and then hit OK, and you go back to the design view inside of Dreamweaver, you'll see what it looks like. It covers the entire screen. Okay, again, under the code view. If we look at the code, it says body, background, image, URL, and you'll see the path right here. This path, and the reason why it's just the name of the file is because the HTML file is next to the graphic, and so you don't have to designate where it's located. But later on this week, we'll learn a lot about paths and how to save the path, so that, you know, if things are in folders, how do we get them, and back and forth. In this case, background, image, URL, graphic, background. If we want to adjust that, we could use Dreamweaver again. If you hit the pencil in the CSS rule, it'll take you right back to where you were. We could say repeat X if we wanted to, and if we hit apply, it'll say, now the code here would be background dash repeat repeat minus X. And so those of you who are hand coding here, that's sort of the code that you would use right there. And I'll provide these sample graphics for you so you can see the HTML. And if I hit save again and I preview it in a browser, you'll see what it looks like. We have to go back to our Dreamweaver here, and you'll see that it goes all the way across the top of the page. So that was a fun one. Not, you know, repeating things like that I don't use very often. The one I'd rather, you know, use would be kind of like the one you saw on the Yahoo Travel, which is kind of a nice gradient kind of background. Now, to get that kind of effect that you saw on the Yahoo Travel, or a nice gradient kind of background, usually what I do is I make a long skinny graphic that is like this. See how it goes all the way from the top to the down, and then I'm going to repeat it across the page. So I'm going to make a long skinny graphic and repeat it across the page, and that'll give you a nice gradient background for a web page. So to do this kind of thing, we go underneath the file, new, and I'm going to make again a long skinny one. I'm going to do a width of only 1 pixel. You can barely see it, but that makes it small. The height I'm going to do like 600. So it's going to be a long, skinny graphic inside. So again, inside of Photoshop, I said File, New, and I start with a file that's only 1 pixel by 600 pixels tall, and I'm going to hit OK. Now you can see it's just basically a line that you see right there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a gradient in there. The gradient inside of the Photoshop feature is underneath it. It's a gradient tool, and it's kind of in the middle of the toolbar. If you don't see it, it might be underneath the paint bucket. So if you hold your mouse down in Photoshop over top of some of these, you'll see there's one that says gradient in there, and in the gradient you could see the color up here. After you choose the gradient tool, there's a color at the top of the page up here, and if I can click on there, you can then just go in there. There's some presets in there, but they're pretty ugly. If you just click on the first one that's there and then start making adjustments, it's fine. Usually, you know, start with the first one right there and then come down here to the bottom of the page and you can make adjustments. How you make adjustments in the gradient is that you'll notice you have one color on one side and another color on the other side. Hence, gradient goes from white in this case to green in this case. I'm going to leave the green right there because I kind of like the green, but I'm going to change the white that's over here. To change the white, I can double click on the little color swatch. It's a small color swatch, but there is a color swatch right there. If I double click on it, oh nope, I guess I can't double click on it. Illustrator, you can double click on it. I guess we can just grab a color. No, it doesn't even let me. Oh, that's transparent. Let me turn it up. The color's the one on the bottom here. See the X on the bottom? This is a transparency up here. The color's the one on the bottom down here. Now let me try and double click on it. There we go. So it's the color on the bottom right here. I should have known that. Okay, so if I choose a color right here, I'm going to choose kind of this orange right here. So we're going to have a background that kind of goes from green to this ugly kind of orange. We'll make it kind of bright. The more important thing is that when I choose the color right here, I want to write down this number right here. What is this number? Well, this number is the hexadecimal value. You might have seen hexadecimal somewhere before. That's just the value of what this color is in kind of in HTML code, so that we can input it inside of Dreamweaver so that we can have our page look a little bit better. And what I mean by better is after the gradient goes down the page, the rest of the page will have this color. So I'm going to write it down, at least for me. Mine's F0D8BB, and I'll show you where you would input that into Dreamweaver. So again, double click on the bottom box and change the color. Make sure you write down the hexadecimal value so you can use it later. And I'm going to hit OK. And then to draw your gradient, I just draw a line down my tall skinny graphic that you see here. I know it's hard to see, but that's sort of the way it is. I'm going to click with my left mouse and I'm going to drag straight down. If you hold the shift key down, it'll drag in a straight line, and you'll see, you really can't see it, but there's a green line that goes to an orange line here. And then I'm going to save this. So I'm going to go under File, Save for Web and Device. Again, I could choose under JPEG or GIF. Under JPEG, it's 406 bytes. Under GIF, it would be 874 bytes. Woo! So the JPEG's smaller in this case, so I'm going to go with the JPEG. I'm going to hit Save, and this is going to be green back. I'm going to hit Save. Then if I jump back over to Dreamweaver, I'll show you how I program this. Again, I'm going to start with a new file inside of Dreamweaver, new HTML file. And then I'm going to go into the, let me start with the design view. First thing I'm going to do is save my file. I'm going to call it back sample 7 in this case, because I've made several of them. Then to make this background, again, I'm going to go into my CSS styles window. Again, we're changing the code for the body tag. So in the CSS styles window, I'm going to hit the little plus button right here, and I'm just going to choose not class. I'm going to choose a tag. So I'm going to redo the body tag here, and I'm going to hit OK. Again, I'm going to go to where it says background in Dreamweaver here, and under where it says background image, I'm going to go to Browse, and I'm going to choose that green, I think I called it green back, there it is. I'm going to hit OK. Then if I hit apply right now, you'll see what it does. It repeats all the way across like that. But it also repeats down, and you notice it kind of starts again, so you get this kind of nice green to kind of this tan color, but then it starts repeating again. So what I want to do is, I don't want it to repeat again down there, and you can't really see it there. But what I want to do is I'm going to say repeat only X, so it goes across, and I'm going to hit apply. But now it's white below where this is. But that's where the background color is. And let me hit OK here for a moment so I can move this window up so you can see what I'm doing here. Again, I'm going to go back to the option here. Let me hit the pencil here to go back to my body. Again, in this window, you'll notice it turns white down here because I told it to repeat only X. But what I can do is I can then fill the rest of the web page in with that color. Remember, I told you to write down the hexadecimal value. Well, if I put in the hexadecimal value in there, and I hit OK, or apply in this case, it then will fill the rest of the page with that color that is right here. So it doesn't look as, you know, you got this nice green that goes to a nice kind of tan, and then poof, the rest of the web page is there. So that's how you can get a nice kind of gradient background. That's a very popular way of doing it. Now again, in CSS3 and HTML5, you can actually have a gradient, and we'll talk about that. Programming that a little bit later, but I want to just show you a quick, easy way to make backgrounds with Photoshop in there. I think I got time. Let me do a real quick one. Last one is going to be how to take a picture like this and put it in the background. So what I did right now is I have a photograph, and let me revert this so you can see it. Okay, here's a nice photo of Europe. In this photo of Europe, I want to have this kind of as a background. So the background for my website, again, the way it looks right now, it would be very difficult to see any content over top of it because it's a photograph. So I'm just going to tone down the contrast of this by just adding a color over top of it. I'm just going to go under the Edit Fill here. Edit Fill to fill this image in with a color, and I choose a foreground color, which is a green right here, and I'm going to fill it in with a percentage. So again, I went under Edit Fill, and underneath the content, I'm going to use Fill it in with a color, and I'm going to choose an opacity of actually I'm going to make it even more, 75%, and I hit OK, and it kind of fills in the background. So you can still see it's a photo, but it's not as dramatic. And I know I'm using ugly green, but that's just going to make my point here. So I'm going to save that, and of course, being a JPEG, it's going to be much smaller than a GIF just because it's a photograph, so I don't even have to test this one. So I'm going to go under File, Save for Web, and I'm going to hit Save, and let's call this one, that I already made one called Fullback. I bet cool, Fullback 2. Now, what this one is going to be inside of Dreamweaver, I'm going to make what's called a fixed background. What is a fixed background? And, well, if we look at this sample, is this the sample I did? No, that's that one. Let's see, number 4, I think it is here. What a fixed background is, and you'll see it right here. is you'll notice I have a background. Well, let me just program it. I'm just going to start with a new one. And again, another new one inside of Dreamweaver. I'm going to hit New, Create. I'm going to save this one. File, Save As, before I do anything else. This is going to be number 8. Hit Save. So for the fixed background here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to import, or I'm going to change the body tag again, just like I did before. I go under the CSS rules, I'm going to hit the little plus here, and I'm going to choose tag, and make sure it says body, same thing I did each time. In this case, what I'm going to do is under the background, I'm going to choose background image, I'm going to hit browse, and I'm going to choose my full back too. I hit OK. Then under repeat, I'm going to choose no repeat, but under where it says background attachment, I'm going to choose fixed. What does that do? Well, it's going to have that background's going to stay in the same place no matter how far the people scroll, and I'll show you what I mean. Let me hit OK here. And then let me just add some content real quick so it goes down the page. I'm just going to add some P tags or paragraph tags so that the background kind of goes down and down and down and down and down and down and down. So think of this as a big long web page that has a lot of content on it. Now, inside of Dreamweaver, it kind of, the background moves. You could see it moving right there when I am moving it. Okay, so all I did was hit a bunch of returns with some text in it to give me a bunch of spaces. But since I choose fixed for that, if I save this and preview it in a browser, watch what happens. If I preview this in Firefox and I scroll, watch what happens. The content is scrolling, but the background stays the same. So this is kind of what we call a fixed background, where you can have a nice sort of image in the background if you really wanted one. The content can be over top of it, and the content can move, but the background stays the same. Again, this is called a fixed background. If you want, you can look at the code I've written. Again, in Dreamweaver, you can see the code really is just background attachment fixed, and then background image, and there's the path, and background image repeat. So those are kind of backgrounds you should be practicing.